This month's reading is a poem by Rachel Holstead, and it's called Perfect. You can't make it perfect. Life has a habit of popping up to remind you of impermanence. Be graceful in letting go, in releasing that perfect dream. Let yourself come gently down to reality, to how it really is, and to the constant change that happens whatever we do. Set your feet on the ground again, and let yourself flow with the earth's turning. There is no perfection, but this dance with all its colours, nothing to do but the living and letting go of every moment. So I chose this one because there are a few themes that it seemed to speak to related to our mindfulness practice. And the first one is change itself, which is kind of discovered as a sort of a key reality in meditation. It's not, if you take an 8-week mindfulness course, there isn't a lot of focus on change and impermanence, but it underpins everything. Generally speaking, trying to control experience doesn't work very well. And it doesn't work very well because experience is continually changing in ways that we quite often can't predict or influence significantly. In particular, our own automatic thoughts and emotions that we maybe haven't chosen. So working with this kind of oncoming flow of experience that's kind of never completely predictable is part of our work. And actually, the kind of mode of mind that wants to control everything is kind of continually coming up against this reality. So it's kind of this mismatch, if you like, between the mind that likes things to be certain and controllable and predictable, and reality, which kind of flies in the face of this. The reality that our bodies are continually changing, our minds are continually changing as we learn and grow. Our environment is continually changing. Our wider culture is continually changing. And yet in the midst of it all, we can feel as if we are static entities like me. And so there's this kind of sort of strange mismatch between what our minds would like it to be and how we sometimes imagine life to be, which is kind of steady, and actually the reality that even our planet is hurtling around the sun at however many thousand miles an hour all the time. So if we're going to find well-being, then that well-being has to come in the midst of that reality. So it means somehow letting go of the need for that control, and the illusion of that control. The need for the control and the illusion of that it's possible to have that kind of control. So that's where kind of Rachel Holstead's words are quite stark. You can't make it perfect. Life has a habit of popping up to remind you of impermanence. Every time we try to make something steady, every time we try to get all the ducks in a row, chances are we're going to get some message from the phenomenal world that will fly in the face of that and prove once again that that's not how life is. So what this invites of us then is what the second paragraph of this reading kind of calls for, which is grace. Be graceful in letting go, in releasing that perfect dream. As soon as we have a willingness to accept this, the whole thing can shift. let yourself gently come down to reality. So rather than trying to keep everything kind of in a way that it can't be, we actually just kind of breathe a sigh of relief and release and drop into the flow. And actually, we can find a kind of steadiness in this. And I really like the line where she says, set your feet on the ground again and let yourself flow with the earth's turning, because it speaks to this very reality of the earth turning, as I say, around the sun at however many thousand miles an hour. And yet there is the possibility of planting ourselves on the ground, of actually finding an anchor in the midst of this impermanence. So mindfulness training isn't an invitation necessarily to chaos, but rather to find a steadiness in the midst of impermanence. Almost like, the image of riding the wave comes to mind here. The wave is continually moving, but if we can find a way of kind of following and flowing with it, then, we can move in a steady way with it, rather than perhaps against it or trying to grasp it. So which brings then to the last line of this, where she says, there's no perfection but this dance with all its colors. So actually bringing ourselves full circle here. We started with, imperfection, and the impossibility of perfection, but maybe there's a kind of, if not perfection, then at least okayness in the midst of this change, if we are able to practice a kind of flexibility in it. So there becomes nothing to do but the living and letting go of every moment. So that's the challenge. And we know that minds being what they are, we flip back into seeking security, to seeking permanence, to pretending that we are static and that the world will, look the same tomorrow as it has done today. Actually, we know that kind of minds project today onto tomorrow. So when we wake up each morning, we're actually projecting yesterday onto today. So it's only when something comes in jars and is different that it gives us the possibility to learn. So at least we can use these moments perhaps where, reality shows us impermanence, shows us something different to what we're expecting, to see each of these as learning moments, kind of like updating the cache of our mind's computer. And if we can flow with that in an ongoing basis, then we're continually updating, we're continually moving with the change. And then maybe it doesn't have to be so jarring when it happens. All right, so the emphasis of this practice that I'm going to guide is on just exploring this a little further, a little deeper, and seeing if we can cultivate the qualities that help us to meet change with acceptance and serenity. So we'll practice together and then have some opportunity for conversation around this. So inviting you to find a posture of steadiness on this moving earth. So just now, maybe the feet in touch with the ground, maybe the eyes closing, letting the body drop into stillness. And within this, we may be aware of some of the changes that are happening, the continuing beating of the heart, the continuing movement of breathing, changes in temperature, the feeling, the tingles that come from blood moving around the body continually. So recognizing that in this apparent stillness, there is much change happening, and that's okay. That's just life unfolding. Letting the sensations of the body in contact with the ground, the chair, clothing, be anchors for attention. So just to tune in to the body sitting here. And just to receive the various fluctuations and variations of experience as they happen. So many varying experiences we might have whilst sitting. Restlessness, boredom, excitement, calm, happiness, heat, cold, racing mind, dull mind. Whatever's here for you, is it possible just to acknowledge this as part of the flow of change? To not need to make it a different way, but to know that this too is impermanent. And so to not to need to make it different or fix it or damn it or divert it, but just to let it flow through us. And to trust that this body can hold it as it moves through. Not hold it in the sense of block it, but just be the container for it as it moves through. Letting the waves of experience happen and passing through the body, through the mind. Practicing going with the flow of change. It's keeping, letting be. And the thinking mind will continue to have its capacity and tendency to try to categorize and compare, judge, project into an imagined future, or make relationships with a remembered past, and that's fine. Can we just let that happen in the space of impermanence? So thoughts too, just arising and passing phenomena. If we treat them this way, then they need not have such power over us. Just practice coming back to the body, to the flow of sensing, to the sensations of our breathing, perhaps, or the feeling of our feet on the ground, or our hands in the lap. Now letting go of the body and seeing if we can bring awareness to sounds. Just letting sounds come center stage in the mind. Opening to this manifestation of change, the waving of sound vibrations. Just to let sounds be heard as they are. And then practicing being receptive, letting go of any need to manipulate what we hear based on what we like or don't like, or on what our thinking mind tells us the sounds are or should be or shouldn't be. Just allowing ourselves to receive the vibrations through the ears, into the brain, into the body. Can we let go into just hearing? Ongoing dynamic experience. And now seeing if we can open to both the body and inner experience as well as outer experience. So opening to body sensations, sounds, thoughts, smells, tastes, whatever else arises. If you have your eyes open, this can include sights too. See if we can watch the interplay of what's being sensed right now. Sounds, thoughts, body sensations. Aware of the changes, seeing if we can go with the flow of these and not needing to block, not needing to resist, not needing to conceptualize, which is another form of fixing into a word, into a kind of a rigid definition. Seeing if we can go with life as it presents, changing, unfolding moment by moment. And to notice what it's like just to let go into the experiencing of this, whether it's a moment of enjoyment or a moment of difficulty or some mix. Change continues to go on within us and around us. And somehow, perhaps just by letting go into sitting here in stillness, get to actually experience this as reality rather than being driven by it unconsciously and perhaps not even being aware of it. So the willingness to sit here and be still throws up the reality of change and also a way of meeting change that's not caught up in all of its reverberations, mental and physical, environmental. Just being willing to sit and be and open and allow. Our meditation doesn't need to be perfect. Our experience doesn't need to be perfect. Each apparent imperfection is an opportunity to meet the moment with grace, with acceptance, with friendliness, with a gentle ease that doesn't need any particular success to happen, just following and going with the flow as best we can. Isn't this a kind of perfection, this resting in imperfection? And indeed, if there's a constant in our lives, isn't it the awareness that sees what's going on? So letting ourselves trust in this awareness and trust in this space. Knowing too that at any point we start to feel lost, we can return to our anchor in the body. We can come back to the breath, come back to this moment of breathing as a touchstone to return to, like coming back to home base. And then when we feel settled enough, we can open back out into an open presence that just receives, no particular direction of attention, just open and spacious, savoring of experience. I'll read the poem again to close our practice. You can't make it perfect. Life has a habit of popping up to remind you of impermanence. Be graceful in letting go and releasing that perfect dream. Let yourself come gently down to reality, to how it really is, and to the constant change that happens whatever we do. Set your feet on the ground again and let yourself flow with the earth's turning. There is no perfection but this dance with all its colours. Nothing to do but the living and letting go of every moment. So staying alive to change as we continue.